Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering The Marvels. The Marvels director is getting blamed for the biggest MCU flop in history. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. There are random people out there blaming Nia DaCosta for the failure of The Marvels, and I wasn't really thinking about her. I was thinking mostly about Brie Larson because, of course, nobody ever liked the Captain Marvel character. There was never a reason to even consider doing a sequel for this movie except to try to prove that, oh yeah, people really do like the Captain Marvel character. So they made The Marvels just to prove that. But then I came across this article from MovieWeb. The Marvels could be a box office flop, but it's not Nia DaCosta's fault. Like, well, wait a minute. I wasn't thinking about it that way, but maybe it was her fault. The Marvels may have stalled at the box office, but director Nia DaCosta should not be blamed for the film's weak start by MCU standards. And I saw this article from /film. Don't feed the trolls and don't blame the Marvels director Nia DaCosta for the film's box office. She was also one of the writers on this film, so she kind of was pretty involved in it. But of course, her attitude was this when it failed. From Outkick, the Marvels director blames virulent and violent and racist and sexist and homophobic Americans for her film's failure. Violent? Were there some kind of mobs or riots over The Marvels? I don't remember hearing about that. Here's how it went down. Outlets like the Associated Press called the film a success. Even though it was a failure, it opened at $46.1 million. But they called it a success by virtue of it being the first MCU release directed by a black woman. The director and co-writer, Nia DaCosta, seemed to agree. This week, she blamed the lack of interest in her film, The Marvels, and its subsequent criticism on the bigotry of Marvel fans. You know something? You're supposed to try to sell what you're making to potential customers. The movie is still out right now. You could try to say nice things to and about the people that you want to actually go see the movie. That could happen. Here's what she said, quote, "There are pockets that are really virulent and violent and racist and sexist and homophobic and all of those awful things," she told Variety's Angelique Jackson when asked about the film going woke. Here's what people on Reddit are responding to with this ridiculous string of nasty comments Nia DaCosta made. Blaming your audience never works. Accept your movie sucks and move on. Whether they are being genuine or it's just some cynical tactic, it's just pathetic at this point. The Marvels was made for nobody. Anyone can tell it was going to flop after the first trailer. It reminds me of all the Twitter people losing it over the Little Mermaid remake being a box office disappointment. Their explanation was because the rest of the world is racist, even though movies like Black Panther and Into the Spider-Verse were hits everywhere in the world. Must be internalized sexism because according to the statistics, the audience of this movie was overwhelmingly male. Something like 65% of the people that went to see this movie was men. Women were not interested in going to see The Marvels. But it's not just Nia DaCosta. From IndieWire, Iman Vellani shrugs off The Marvels box office failure, saying, "That's for Bob Iger to worry about." The Miss Marvel star isn't losing sleep over the profitability of her big screen debut. She just could care less. And now Disney actually finally is getting seriously criticized for their box office failures. From CNBC, Disney's box office problems ramp up pressure on CEO Bob Iger and studio chief Alan Bergman. The Marvels has only done $161 million worldwide. They were hoping for at least around twice as much of that by now. It's being projected that The Marvels may not even do $100 million domestic. This is a movie that cost more than $270 million to make. Disney does get a very significant tax rebate from the UK government when they make the movie in the UK. However, they probably spent $100 to $150 million promoting this movie. Film finance is not easy. If people give you an exact number, it's not the right number. They're going to lose probably $150 to $200 million on this movie. Other than The Marvels, the biggest project that Nia DaCosta has worked on was Candyman, the Candyman remake. This movie is often referred to as a hit, but it's not a hit, not by really any reasonable measurement. It was only $25 million to make this movie. So to do $77 million in a worldwide gross, That's fine. That's a money-making movie. It's okay. But you do not take someone who's worked on a couple of movies, with the biggest one being a $25 million movie project, and put them on a $300 to $350 million movie project, especially one that's so complicated and crucial for Marvel. Marvel knew this was going to be a very difficult movie for them to make. They knew a lot of people were not interested in seeing Brie Larson again, much less Iman Vellani or anyone else associated with the Marvels film. Even Samuel L. Jackson is not that cool anymore. There was no reason that people needed to go and see this movie. So to give this project to someone who has not done anything at this scale before, and give them as much freedom as they obviously gave her, and allow her to be a co-writer as well as a director. Being able to write and direct your own projects is something that needs to be earned in the film industry. It's not something that people just get handed to them by a studio. It has to be negotiated for very hard. It's ridiculous to think that Marvel and Disney would give this person a $300 million project and the ability to write and direct it. Disney really needs to get their act together. And I do blame her even more than I blame Kevin Feige, because hey, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 came out under Kevin Feige. That one did $845 million. That one, Kevin Feige didn't need to spend multiple months trying to fix and do reshoots. Everyone knows James Gunn is a total pro and he just turns the project in. It's good and it makes money. That's what you're supposed to do when you have these high stakes projects. The Marvels, at best, should have been some kind of a $10 or $15 million TV movie. And if you want to give that to this director, that would have been fine. This was not a project that she should have been anywhere near. And I'm not trying to attack her, even though she's attacking Marvel fans. I'm trying to say it makes absolutely no production or business sense to give an untested talent a gigantic, expensive project that's very important to the studio that you know is going to be a challenge. Here's why we should always protect Nia DaCosta for whatever film she ever makes at all costs. Coming from /film, don't feed the trolls and don't blame the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta for the film's box office. What a difference 5 years can make. This time back in 2018, Marvel Studios was on a red-hot streak and was gearing up for the release of Captain Marvel, another sure-to-be box office gem to add to its figurative Infinity Gauntlet. It's easy to forget just how much awful people on the internet had it out for the House of Ideas for a solo woman-led Marvel Cinematic Universe film, especially when star Brie Larson dared to use her platform to attack the staggering lack of inclusivity among the ranks of the press. Notice when Wonder Woman came out, no one had a problem going to see Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman sequel was terrible and didn't do well, but the first Wonder Woman in 2017 did $823 million worldwide, a huge success for Warner Brothers and DC. But despite the chorus of clowns online chanting "Go woke, go broke," the film handily became a member of the coveted billion-dollar club. Of course, Captain Marvel would have never done the business that it did unless it was sold as Avengers 1/2. It came out in between two Avengers movies, and the way it was marketed, you got the impression you kind of needed to see it to appreciate the Avengers. When you consider how well the Avengers did compared to how well Captain Marvel did, it didn't do anywhere near as well. And it permanently damaged Marvel's brand, which we only now see how bad things have gotten for Marvel. Now the Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels, which is also a sequel to the Disney Plus shows WandaVision, Ms. Marvel, and Secret Invasion, has set a new franchise low for MCU box office domestic opening weekends. Coupled with the film's middling reviews, it caps off a disappointing year for Marvel Studios, one that has seen multiple titles flop and several bombshell reports detailing the company's behind-the-scenes problems. They also had to fire Victoria Alonso, who had been there early in the days when they were building the Marvel film studio. Of course, the same crappy people who trolled Captain Marvel have been predictably quick to lay the blame for its sequel's box office on the Marvel's co-writer and director, Nia DaCosta, the first black woman to helm an MCU movie. However, regardless of how you personally feel about her film, throwing DaCosta under the bus is racist, sexist, and yes, objectively inaccurate. DaCosta is, to put it simply, going places. Her first movie, the 2018 neo-western Little Woods, was a critical darling, and her second film, the 2021 horror reboot sequel Candyman, while less well received, did quite well financially. No, it didn't. We just went over these numbers. They weren't paying attention. The Candyman grossed $61 million domestically, based on a prior successful franchise. The budget was $25 million. The studio doesn't keep the $61 million. They get around half of it. Some money was spent marketing it. Does that make it a failure? No, it's not a failure. It's just not a big moneymaker. DaCosta going on to helm an MCU film right after that is standard procedure nowadays for Hollywood, where up-and-comers are frequently hired to oversee big-budget projects after scoring a smaller hit. Yet, for some reason, unlike DaCosta, nobody accused Colin Trevor Morrow of being a diversity hire when he went from directing Safety Not Guaranteed to Jurassic World. How peculiar. The reason people care about the Marvels, the reason people care about Captain Marvel, is because this is something where we were told we're forcing diversity on you. And then you go ahead and you hire someone to direct a movie that is way outside her scale. Jurassic World is not a Marvel movie. It's not even a Disney movie. It's a completely other studio. And frankly, some people enjoy the Jurassic Park series of movies, but no one has cared about it. It's not part of a branded studio. It's just one small franchise. Marvel is a massive franchise, and they're all sort of linked together under the Marvel brand. When you make one terrible Marvel movie, that affects the other Marvel movies. If you make one excellent Marvel movie, it used to help the other Marvel movies. Now they're so sloppily done, people aren't excited about the brand anymore. They've worn it all out. Anyway, there are plenty of reasons the Marvels misfired at the box office that were firmly out of DaCosta's hands, including the cast being unable to promote the film until the actor strike was resolved 2 days before it opened, and the fact that superhero tentpoles are no longer the dominant box office force they were pre-pandemic. DaCosta has also addressed the fact that she began preparing her next film while The Marvels was still in post-production. She should not have done that. She should have overseen the film and had some of the difficult arguments and conversations she needed to have with the people that were finishing the film. And if the film, when it was finished, wasn't right, she should have argued to say, you know what, let's wait another year. You know what? Let's put it on Disney Plus. Let's not blow up the whole Marvel brand, because that's what's happening even on CNBC now. On Hollywood Reporter, in Variety, they're talking about how Marvel is no longer a bulletproof brand. Well, we know that, but now it's openly being discussed because this is the worst performing Marvel movie ever. She didn't do it on her own, but she helped crater the Marvel studio. Quote, for me personally, it was literally just that they moved the date of the film 4 different times. And so instead of it being a 2-year process, which I was deeply committed to, it became a 3.5-year process. And then she added, she continued to work on the Marvels remotely while prepping Hedda, her new movie, which she couldn't postpone any longer without risking it being canceled. She can't lose a job over this. I mean, we have to worry about her, not about the brand, not about the studio, not about the actors, not about millions of people who are actually invested in the brand, some of which were actually waiting to see this movie. No, just bang it out, because who cares? You don't want to mess up one of your own jobs over it, or even take a chance that you might mess up one of your own jobs over it. And you're not supposed to blame this person. By then, everyone was so clear about what the Marvels was, what we wanted. Everyone knew what I wanted. So it really wasn't the dramatic sort of thing that I think people are feeling. She also apparently didn't have complete control of the movie. Well, of course not. Final cut, like also the ability to write and direct your own movies, is not something that you would give to this director. You get that when you do Avatar. You get that when you do Terminator. You get that when you're George Lucas. You don't get that from someone who just did Candyman. It's the dirty secret that everyone already knows. At the end of the day, there's one creative whose voice outranks everyone else's in the MCU, and it's the head honcho, Kevin Feige. It was something DaCosta was fully aware of when she boarded the Marvels, telling Vanity Fair, It is a Kevin Feige production. It's his movie. So I think you live in that reality, but I tried to go in with the knowledge that some of you is going to take a back seat. That also meant making her peace with just how much of a personal mark she could leave on the material, all the way down to specific comic book influences. As she told Entertainment Weekly, the biggest challenge was finding the balance between my point of view as a director and as a comic book nerd. Obviously, there are changes between the comics and the movies, and sometimes I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Sometimes Kevin Feige would be like, you're being too much of a nerd, please stop. When people are coming up in any kind of professional work, any kind of creative work, it does no good to not be realistic. Nobody who is this new should be doing a $300 million plus production, especially not one that's part of a continuity-based, incredibly complicated, branded studio universe. This is something that should have been done, if it was going to be done at all, by someone who has handled a project this complicated already within Marvel before. If they didn't have that person, they shouldn't have made this movie, because they know that everyone hates Brie Larson and nobody cares for the Captain Marvel character. They shouldn't have made this movie because no one cares about Ms. Marvel. They should not have made this movie. But even if they were going to make this movie, they should have planned it out a lot better. DaCosta needs to have a much better attitude about fan feedback. The movie was woke. It was very woke. Just because Kevin Feige says it's okay to do that doesn't mean that the fans who were going to pay to see it think it's okay to do that. And calling people racist or homophobic might get this director some more jobs in Hollywood, but it's not going to make the films more successful. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.